The following presentation was recorded live for the International Association of Square Dance Callers 33rd Annual Convention. We take you live to the Renaissance Suites Hotel in Charlotte, North Carolina, where our session is just getting underway.
Passing amongst you, handing out goodies. This is the 2006 CALLERLAB Convention being held in Charlotte, North Carolina. As is often the case, we are recording the session. This session is about calling in schools. My name is John Marshall. I'll be the moderator, so if they start to fight, that's my job to sort that out. We will assist in any way we can. All three of the panelists have a lot of experience working in the schools. They have some really good things to share. And we will start on the far end once everything is handed out. It looks like Mike's ready and loaded for bear. And I will introduce for you as we go. Mike Callahan, who will be on the far end, my right, your left. Sitting next to him is Eric Henerlau, California. Mike, by the way, is from New York. And on Eric's left, yes, it's on your left, and is Tom Miller from Pennsylvania. And we are pleased to have all three. Enjoy yourselves. They have worked things out amongst themselves of how they want to present, what they want to present. And there will be time for questions, input, suggestions. We'd like to hear from you. When we bring the mic to you for a question or a response, we will ask you to state your name each time you have the mic and where you're from, and then feel free. How are we doing, gentlemen, on the end?
Well, we're trying to work. Why is this? Just barely comes, but that's coming in so.
That's not good. Let's work on the technology here a little bit. And see, it worked that particular unit.
Test.
Now the other's occupied. Okay, we'll just pass the mic for now so we can move on. Sorry, guys.
No, I'm Mike Callahan. I come from the Rochester, New York area, Spencerport, New York. Back in, I think it was 1976, one of our area callers next county over was calling a school program, and he decided he didn't want to do it anymore. So he got a hold of me and he says, you know, I've been calling for this high school for a couple of years. I go there for a whole week. I have 8 classes a day. Would you be interested in doing this? And I said, sure. I went to this school. It was 40 miles away from my house, 80-mile round trip. I did 8 classes a day for 5 days, and I got paid substitute teachers pay, which was $40 a day. Today, I do probably between 20 and 30 schools a year. Some are a day, some are a week, some are 2 days. A lot of times they lead to an evening program after working with the kids. Okay, so it's something that over the years I've built on. Phys ed teachers have quite a network. They talk among themselves, and when they find something that they like, they tell other phys ed teachers about it. So this is something that's more or less grown for me as a regular part of my business. In January of this year, from the second week in January through the end of last week, I taught square dancing in a school every single school day. So it's something that I think a lot of callers, if they know how to tap into, eventually they can build a daytime business with it. Okay, I do call full time, so this helps me a lot, especially with the nighttime type of things. Not substitute pay anymore, no. But we'll get into that a little bit later. Usually the schools, what they do is they start thinking about having inside activities for the kids when the cold weather comes in New York, which is usually November. So usually from part of December through probably the middle of May is my big season for schools. And you'll find that, you know, depending on the area of the country you are, of course, this is what happens in the Northeast. Okay, once the good weather comes, they want the kids outside to do things with. Okay, I work kindergarten right through high school, K through 12. Some of the schools I go into have never done this before. Some have me year after year after year. I've been going to one school for the full 25 years. One of the high schools I go to has what they call a showdown hoedown every year. And they get 40 squares of high school kids dancing in competition for prizes. Okay? I'll go in there for 2 days, do the program, and the last hour and a half of the school day, they have this hoedown. Okay? It's been going on for 15 years, this showdown hoedown. Okay? It's part of the phys ed program. This particular school district, which is Fairport, New York, starts square dancing in grade 3. Every school does it through grade 12. And I think there's probably 5 schools in the district. Okay? So it's a program that you gradually build on once you get your foot in the door. Okay? So what we're doing now, Tom and Eric, we're talking about our experiences with the schools. I have handed out a list, an agenda of things that we're going to talk about, but we wanted to first of all talk about our experiences first, and then we're going to go through the list here. So I'm going to give this over to Eric.
My name is Eric Henerlau. I'm from Corte Madera, California. That's in the suburbs outside of San Francisco. I've served on this panel before, and I was thinking this year when I was being asked to serve on it, you know, what I can bring out for people information-wise that, you know, is valuable. And it occurs to me that the perspective that I'm going to bring on this is to either side of me are 2 full-time callers who call strictly for a living, and they have figured out ways to do the program in school, and they're very good at it. I don't do it nearly to the volume they do it, so I'm going to look at it from the perspective of a person who actually does another job during the day and calls in the evening, and working, you know, a part-time school program into all of my activities and how that happens. I first got into this 5 or 6 years ago when my son came home when he was a freshman in high school and said, "We're doing square dancing in our PE unit." It's really, that's great. Yeah, we got these records. And so, yeah, of course, I had to go find out. And so I went to the school and found out, and, you know, you can imagine what I heard. And they were I don't know if they were 78s or 45s, whatever they were, and the teacher had them dancing them, and the kids were standing around mortified, and the teacher was just playing the record, saying, "Isn't this great?" clapping their hands, and the kids were standing around with pretty much the expression on their face was, "Shoot me now, just get me out of here." It was really that bad. I actually had never experienced that bad. So I told the teacher, "Hey, listen, why don't I come and do a square dance program? My son might have told you I'm a square dance caller." So we set it up for the sophomores to do that. And I came in because I had a relationship with my children going to that high school, and I had a relationship with the teachers. I obviously knew the teachers. And so they said, "That's a great idea. Why don't you come in and do that?" I never once asked for money. So I'm going to preface this with the work that I did in that school for many years. I did on a volunteer basis as a parent coming in, like you would in PTA or something like that. And I said, this is the skill set I bring forward. So I came in and did a program, and I put together a program where I taught the sophomore PE students square dancing in a period of 6 weeks. And during that 6 weeks, I took 6 Fridays in a row off from work. I took vacation time from work to come in and spend the entire day for 6 Fridays in a row to teach them square dancing based on a program that I put together that I felt was something that would be workable with the kids in that short time frame, and it covered maybe about 25, 30 calls in that time frame. 7 periods in the day, starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, finishing at 3:10 in the afternoon. So for 7 periods in the day, the same thing over and over and over again. For me, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about what it's like to be a teacher. You know, what teachers have to go through every single day. They get up and stand in front of the students for 7 periods of the day, teaching the same subject over and over and over again. So you start to think of ways of making it creative in your head. To do it different, just do something different, at least for yourself, so you don't go crazy. I did this program. I've done it now for 6 years, and I've had dancers. So all the students have to take it because it's compulsory. PE is compulsory through the 10th grade. Everybody has to take PE. So I got to see all the students, which means since everybody was dancing, some of the kids just loved this, some of the kids didn't care, and some of the kids really hated this. But my objective here wasn't to my objective here was not to fill up beginner classes with square dancers. My objective was to complete a program where they get exposed to a dance form, got exposed to some ideas about having fun in a team, and that they would walk away later in life with a really good experience of square dancing, as best they could walk away with. You know, some kids won't like it, but you know, a lot of kids will walk away saying, "This was great." I'll get more details about that later, but I just want to say that that was my primary program. This year, I also expanded to another high school. I got actually hired. I got paid. This was a good one. And of all things, they didn't find me with the rest of that. They kind of found me circuitously through the internet. And so they got a reference to somebody else and finally got to me. And so I got to do this at a Catholic girls' school this year. And they teamed up with the sister or the partner Catholic boys' school down the street. So they came over in the morning before school, and they would all dance together. So I think it was something where they could all interact. I think that was a big drawing factor for them. I did that program again over a period of like 5 weeks, same type of thing for an hour in the morning. Had a great time with them doing it. I learned a lesson. I learned a lesson in this particular one. There was an event at the very end where the dancers were asked to give a demonstration for the rest of the school because everybody was involved in different activities. So their part came up. We had 5 minutes to do a demonstration of square dancing. I assumed incorrectly the dancers would self-select. In other words, those kids who really liked it would get up there and jump up and do this. When the time came and we finally dragged some dancers up there to do this thing, we got the kids who didn't really care. And so the demonstration at the end, sort of like the final presentation, did not look good. And that was a big lesson for myself, that if I'm going to do something like that, working with kids, and there's going to be some presentation at the end, whatever that is, make sure I carefully select the kids who really like it and are really into doing that performance at the end for someone else, and just don't assume they're going to self-select, the ones that want to do it with Jetbo. That's kind of a highlight, so I'm going to turn it over to Tom now.
Very good. I've had the opportunity to work at a high school, several high schools in the area, but one in particularly that I want to talk about since 2000. It's a high school that contains kids from the age or grades 9th through 12th. And they do 2 separate semesters. So each kids are dealing with only 4 classes a day of 86-minute periods. My first class is at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it finishes at 9:20. And then I come right back at 9:26 and do another class. So I do 4 classes a day that ends at 2:35. And then, of course, there's the break for the lunch. I have each period 4 times. I have them. I go for 2 weeks. So I have them the first week twice, like maybe Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, Friday. And then it's a repeat on the second week. Everything that I do at the school is all the way through Ferris wheel in that period of time. I get through a lot of material. As we said in several of the sessions, that kids are like sponges. They saturate really fast. And it's constant. It's a fast pace. It's a different style of square dancing. And here again, we'll talk more about this in a few minutes with the outline of the page that was passed out to you. How I got into the school was just by luck of knowing the principal. At that particular time, he owned a recording studio that I was recording at. And I ran across him at a McDonald's. I was ordering a salad at the time. Really? Listen, I didn't interrupt you guys. Leave me alone. Okay, no. Anyway. Anyway. Will you stop already, okay? Anyway. Where's my moderator when I need him? Anyway. So anyway, I said to him, I said, hey, what's the chances of getting into the high school and doing square dances? He goes, done. And that's how I got into the high school. I go in usually December because in central Pennsylvania the weather is not very good. So we go in December and do 2 weeks right before the holiday. Because at that time they said that the kids are not in the learning mode anyway because of the holiday. And then the second semester, I go in either February or March, depending on how my schedule allows me to go in. I do get paid on a regular basis. Matter of fact, I am hired through, I'm not a person that just comes in for those 4 weeks and leave. I am hired through the school district. I am down as an aide. So even when I'm away from the school, if they have an aide that cancels, and they need an aide for that particular day, they could call me to come in and take care of, so I'm hired through the school as an aide as well. So it's not something that is 4 weeks, but I go into the school on several occasions, not to call square dances, but to help out when the teacher needs help or to watch over testing and so forth. So I have the respect as if I'm one of the teachers or one of the personnel that works there at that high school. It's quite interesting because the 12th graders has now had the square dancing 4 years. It's new to the 9th graders. And of course, the 10th and 11th, this is going to be the 12th and the second and third year for each of those classes. I try to do something different every time that every year I do something different, so the 12th grader doesn't say that's the same thing as I had before. I always do something different. I do it from a different formation, whatever it might be. Very, very, very little. I may have somebody come up and ask to do like Cotton Eye Joe, but most of the stuff we do is all techno music, a very solid beat of music. So they don't hear the fiddles, and they don't hear the harmonicas, whatever it might be. They're dancing to music that, when you put music on, it's kind of nice. I can usually tell who the 9th graders are right away, because when you put a piece of music on, they turn to each other, then look up at me like, you're kidding. But the other upperclassmen are prepared, ready to go. They know what to expect. Eric had touched on about kids dancing it, liking it, and so forth. We dealt with that the first year, and then I went to the phys ed teachers and I says, let's do this. We're having a small percentage of kids that doesn't want to get into a square. Why don't we do something like, okay, here's your options. You got 2 options. You get into a square and you participate and get the grade like everybody else does, or you take a 0, or you go and you do a 5,000-word essay on square dancing. When we started that, we've never had a kid that did not want to square dance, because most of the kids do not want to write a 5,000-word essay. And it is really neat to have a 10th grader that has a mohawk with the rainbow colors through it, saying, I'm not dancing. Okay, then you need to do a 5,000. You have to do either or. Okay, then you need to do a 5,000-word essay. Oh, no. I'm going to go square dancing. I'm going to get in that square dancing. And it's just kind of neat that, and usually from that point on, they're the first ones in the square. They're ready to go. We break just for a few minutes. The second tip, they go out and get their drink of water, and we come back in. It's constant. It's very, very, it's constantly with just breaks. And the only breaks that we take if they're a substitute. But it's an ongoing thing. I'm proud to say that this year coming up, next school year, 06 and 07, I'm going into the junior high school to the 7th and 8th grade and teaching all of those kids basically the first stepping stones. So when they come into the high school at 9th grade, they've had all those basic fundamentals of the stars, the elementalists, and so forth.
Thank you, Tom. It's fascinating. You may not realize that Tom is obviously full-time professional world-traveling talent, and he does get paid. I just have never seen a school system before that paid in salad, but if it works for you, that's a good thing. Folks, we are actually most fortunate to have with us this panel and at this convention a gentleman caller named Dan Prosser from Pennsylvania. And Dan has a long-standing experience with homeschool groups that he uses, and we've asked Dan to step in and speak as well, even though he was not listed on the panel. He has good things to share, so let's welcome Dan as well.
Oh, thank you very much. The part of the youth that I work with, in the schools I work with, I do what Tom does and has been very successful at that. But I'm involved in the square dance competition in central Pennsylvania, and we didn't have any youth involved for years. And I was trying to figure out a way to get started. And a friend of ours homeschools their children, and they happened to come to one of the farm show dances and said how much fun it was. And I said, do you think the Homeschool Association would be interested? And they said, well, there's a meeting in September, and there's 300 families in the Harrisburg area and homeschoolers. So why don't you offer a physical education class for whatever number of weeks you want, you know, and you name whatever the price is, because that's the way the homeschool system works, and find a place. You have to have a place to plan this. And I was looking at it selfishly. I needed the practice on the dances that we do for the farm show, but I also wanted to get youth involved. The first year we had 18 children, and we did not enter a square. The second year we had about 24 children, and we had a square, and they took blue ribbons. The second year we had 2 squares, and we took blue ribbons, or third year. And the fourth year we did the same thing. We have children from the ages of 7, I tell them 8 years old and up, but I will always get quote-unquote mature 6-year-olds. And in the homeschool environment, those kids are 9-year-olds. Even though they're 6, they're 9. And I've not come to an instance where that isn't the instance. But 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds will work with those 7 and 8-year-olds. And I take and start them out with line dances and circle dances. It improves the coordination of the small children. Within 3 weeks, I can see a difference there. For the first 2 weeks, the parents tell me, in all the new children, particularly the first year, the parents said it was like pulling teeth to get the children to come out at 3 in the afternoon for this dance. After the second week, all right, there is war at home if they can't go to the square dance. I mean, that's how they do a 180. And everybody has a good time. Boys have a good time. Girls have a good time. There's not issues of holding hands. And the only problem really exists are 7 and 8-year-old boys who lose their attention span. And they'll goof around. And you can be in a position there as an adult of just saying, you know, Jonathan, you know, you were goofing around and the square fell apart, and you're going to have to, you know, you have to stop doing that. And Mother's sitting back there, and she doesn't say a thing. The parents are angels, and so the mothers aren't allowed to leave during that hour and a half. And so if I need a boy or a girl, Mom, you fill in that spot. This year we have 3 of them in our new dancer program for square dancing. So I didn't do it with the attitude of doing that, but it's a great source if you want to work with youth and get youth. And I think the homeschool program will develop. It's a good way to go. But the school program and the schools, as the guys are talking about, are becoming much more interested in square dancing. The social aspects are... Yeah, we don't go to school buildings, okay? What I found is I found a church that says anyone can use our church facility, a room in our church, if it's available at no charge. And I charge $1 a child, and that's donated to the church as a thank you. I just won't give the service away. I don't take anything, but it's not worth anything if they don't pay for it. So, but we've been in the recreation department. The 1 year gave us a room to use, and it's the last 2 years. The way the schools have been, not because they were being nasty, it was just a case that they're remodeling and we couldn't get a school. So I found this church, and it's actually handier than the schools. So, but these programs can be done in the schools because of some rules about homeschoolers have to be able to use school facilities if they have a program. So that is not an issue.
Thank you, Dan. It's nice to have that added element, and I was so pleased to see that Dan was here and that he agreed to share. And we'll go back down the line. You guys ready for your next step? Are any questions at this point? Yes, sir. We'll bring a microphone to you.
Thank you. I'm Ken Deesford from Nashville, Tennessee area. I know a lot of the schools require or request a syllabus, and I have seen some of the syllabus on the internet, but I'm not sure if they're the right setup. Do you have a program of your own syllabus that you can use? I think you were the one that had one on the internet, if I'm not mistaken.
Does it work? Oh, it does work. Oh, cool. Even better. Yes, actually I did. Were you the one that asked the home office about that? Okay. I did. The school didn't ask for the syllabus, but I created one. I created it because that's the way I like to do things. I like to have a package, something tangible, saying this is what we're doing. An overview, a nice cover page. Here are the calls. Of course, I put the definitions in. I cut and paste the CALLERLAB definitions right in there with these calls. I broke it into the 5 or 6 weeks I was doing. There was a page for every week. And then I put a couple of paragraphs of square dance history starting from way back when. So each week they got a little piece of history from the beginning to today. I actually had somebody kind of correct me on some of that history part too. So it could use some updating, so don't take it verbatim. But yes, I did hand that out. I created the packages, handed them out. The kids put them in their binders. The school never asked for it, and I did that out of my own expense. It's free for the taking. I think the home office has it on their website if you'd like to take it from there.
I've never been asked for a syllabus at all. I've gone in there, I've done my thing, and nobody has ever asked me for anything. I actually use the CALLERLAB basic program, starting with bilateral partners, circle left, and I work down the list pretty much for the first maybe 20 or 30 calls. I also, when the kids come in, I have them sit down and do a little history presentation about square dancing. And it's kind of interesting because I tell them about how square dancing came from some of the old European folk dances. And in World War II, the soldiers took square dancing back to Europe and Japan, essentially. And now in Europe, in Japan, and some of these places, square dancing is very popular. I try to emphasize the recreational aspect of square dancing, how people learn. They go on cruises, they go on vacations, try to keep away from the barn type thing. You know, you'll say to kids, where'd square dancing come from? They'll say, oh, Texas or somewhere like that. And you tell them, in this area, in our area, there's 15 square dance clubs, all right? I say to them, you know, how many of you guys go camping in the summer? And somewhere, what if you ran into a square dance at a camp or a church group or a scouting program? It would be nice to know some of the calls that you could participate. So what you do is you try to emphasize the recreational aspect of square dancing more than the traditional type. Scott.
You basically answered my question. My question was going to be, Scott Byer, Sacramento, California. My question was going to be, what percentage, or do you do any traditional type of stuff in your programs that you do? I know that when I work with the schools, I use no traditional stuff at all. I use just the square dance movements. I'm curious as to whether you guys use any traditional.
I do not use any of the traditional. I use the basic list, and that's what I go. That's what I go by. I do not give them any kind of handouts either. Kids are prone to leave things lay. In the gymnasium, you see book bags and coats and cell phones and pencils and pens and everything else laying in the bleachers and all that. So I figured that handouts would probably be pretty close in the same order of being. So I do not hand out handouts. I tell these kids if they have any questions about anything that we've done, or if there's anything in general about square dancing you need to know, then I do like a one-on-one type thing to each one of those kids that ask. And usually I get questions asked, you know, about square dancing, and sometimes the attire comes in. They ask about does the lady still wear the crinoline type thing, and it's amazing, you know, the kids. But not one time have I heard, you know, the kids asking, because now the first year that I did, I had, you know, do they still dance in barns and things like that? But I don't get that anymore, just for the fact being is that over the years, the kids know that they're not going to be hearing the barn music, and everything's, you know, up and up. So on the upside music of it, so there's that time that if anybody has to ask any questions, they could do it any time that they see me at the school. And I do not make my email available to them either. So
I use very, very little traditional square dancing. I might with the younger kids, I might do a bird in the cage, something like that. I do visiting couple things, but I'll say like couple 1, go to couple 2, make a right-hand star, make a left-hand star, 2, go to 3, that type of thing. As far as the visiting couple things are concerned. In an evening program, I might do a Virginia reel or something like that, you know, with the parents and the kids. But when you only have 40, 45 minutes with the kids, I mean, sometimes the traditional dance, you have to teach the whole dance, where you can, with the modern square dance, you can teach just the basics and use them in different ways. So I use very little traditional square dancing. How about you, Eric?
I have not used any traditional square dancing up to this point. Everything I've done has been modern Western square dancing. However, That being said, I also spent Saturday and Sunday here in the community dance program and learned a lot about Sicilian circles, contras, quadrilles, and other forms of traditional dance. With that knowledge, and let me back up a second. When I do the program in the schools, because I'm calling pattern, I'm not even using singing calls in my particular program because I'm just working pattern stuff for 5 hours, 6 hours a day for 6 weeks, it gets, even for me, it just gets kind of monochromatic, like there's only one thing we're doing, you know. There's a reason for variety because, you know, it freshens things up. So what I learned this weekend here, I'm going to look at that and see how I can use it, maybe with some different music, and apply that as some alternate dance forms when I teach the modern Western square dancing in the school. I'll still teach modern Western square dancing, but I'd like to work some Sicilian circles into that as well, and some other forms of dance. Just for the variety factor, so the kids aren't just focused on one thing only.
Kenny Ferris, why is it you don't use singing calls, and do your other guys use singing calls? I think kids would love that, with the right songs.
I do singing calls from day one. I treat those 84 minutes just like if it's a regular dance. Now, but see, I'm in a different situation than these two are because their periods are lasting 40 to 45 minutes. Mine's doubled that, you know, so I can treat it more like a dance party type thing, and I can take the time. I've done 45-minute spots with different schools, and I know for a fact by the time you get them into the square, and by the time you did that, you have 30 minutes left. And then trying to explain, make sure you take hands, you now have 20 minutes left. It's an ongoing. And where I can get 6 to 7 tips in that hour or 84 minutes, you're probably maybe looking at 2, 3 at the most in the 45-minute period. So their limit, can they do singing calls? Of course, but I think their goal is first is getting them into where they need to be and get them the feel. And I think I'm safe by answering that for Eric and Mike both, that I'm sure that throughout their week or 2 weeks they're at that school that they will do singing calls eventually. But I do it from day one. Do I do it every tip? No. But because that first week we do nothing but teaching, and then at the end of the day for each one of those classes I'll do a singing call for them. Like reward type thing. Mike?
I also do a singing call usually at the end of each period, the last 5 minutes. I'll do a singing call. Okay, and as he said, you know, you're working with them for the 30, 40 minutes, whatever, and kids like to be challenged. I mean, they don't want to hear circle left and circle right all the time. I mean, you spend 5 seconds on circle left and go on to something else. You spend 10 seconds on do-si-do and go on to something else. In some of the old records that the schools use, I mean, you also hear a circle left, circle right, swing, I mean, the kids get so bored. So you want to spend as little time as possible because, as Tom said, they pick it up like a sponge, you know, and they want more. And if you can get them in different formations all the time, the more formations that you can get them in and the time that you have, the more they really enjoy it.
My experience with singing calls in the school, and I'm confident with my ability to sing, but my experience in the school is when I do singing calls, and I've done them, the kids, and these are sophomores, they'll make it more about me and singing than about the dancing. So they'll stop and they'll just, you know, be dealing with the issue of me singing for them in the school. Now, I still do, once in a while, do a singing call at the tail end of a 6-week program as a reward for getting everything done. But if they're spending a lot of time laughing and fooling around because I'm up there singing for them, that's not my objective. My objective is to have them be dancing. So,
but your dancers at your regular dance stop when you start doing a singing call, too.
That's true. Maybe they're telling me something. I don't know. That's what it is. Okay. Now I understand. So going back to that, you know, and I want to comment on something that Mike said about getting them into as many formations as possible. With the teenagers, I'm focusing on, I think what Nasser coined the phrase, grid choreography. And that's where all the calls I select out of the program that I'm teaching them, move them. Like within 2 weeks, within the second lesson, they're up to start through, pass through, bend the line, dive through, California twirl, and all that stuff. So I can start moving them all around the grid. I'm not doing a lot of circle calls. And by the end of the 6 weeks, I've got a lot of grid formation stuff going over the circulates and the bend the lines and the flutter wheels and all that stuff that really kind of change their formation constantly. And that's what I'm focusing on the kids. So it becomes a big challenge for them at the end of the session to see if they can get through this. We have the hot hash at the end of every class to make sure that the kids understand the material and they have an opportunity to really dance it at 900 miles an hour.
Scott Byers, Sacramento. My question to you is your age group. What are the age groups you're doing? Are you guys doing primarily high school age? Are you doing any with the younger, like 3rd through 5th grade? Are you doing any of that? Does your program change with 3rd through 5th as opposed to working with high schools?
I guess I'll go first on that. Mine is primary high school, 9th through 12th grade. And like I said, I'm on to the 7th and 8th grade starting this year. However, I do go to a Catholic school where my daughters go to school at and do sessions from K all the way through 8th grade. And, of course, with kindergarten kids, you can't get them into a square. Circles, a big circle pretty much. So 2nd grade, 1st grade, pretty much the same. They're like, and it's a job without a doubt. The 7th and 8th graders are okay to do the grand square and the alimental lefts, the right and left grands. So it does change when you're dealing with kids. It has to change your program. It's just like any other dance. You have to change your program to the ability of those dancers.
I probably at least half the schools I do are elementary, and very few middle schools, and then quite a few high schools. I just wanted to say something about singing. If you're going to do a singing call, make sure you can sing, because if you can't, you'll hear about it. Do the singing calls. Try to use modern type singing calls. The kids that I do, especially the high school kids, love the baby boomer tunes. The My Girl, the Help Me Rhonda, those type of songs, okay? But make sure you can sing, I'll tell you. As far as, did you have a question about what choreography I might use with the kindergartners or something like that, Scott, or?
No, my question not was choreography. My question was your program. The reason I'm asking that question is when I've worked high schools as opposed to working the grammar schools and that kind of thing, I've found that there are different things that if you are in a limited time frame setup, you can't teach. For example, 3rd through 5th, I would not teach grand square with them because it would take too much time out of my program. They don't deal with not holding hands. You know, they lose that. Although holding hands can be a problem as well, but I do a lot of stars, a lot of circles, a lot of stuff that they would be using their hands with. I won't do things that do have handhold. So I guess my question is, are you finding that your programs, your teaching progression changes, not the choreography?
It changes as far as the small children. I found it's real easy. When the kids come in, little kids, you have them sit in a circle. Teacher says, you know, can I have 4 volunteers, boys, 4 volunteers? He'll set the square up. And then you just walk through, you know, you come out, get a good wireless mic, come out on the floor and tell them who their partner is, who their corner is. Have the one square demonstrate very basic things, do-si-do. For the little kids, you don't try to promenade cross hand. You just walk hand in hand like this. Okay, but when they see one square doing it, and then the teacher sets them up in squares, it really works really well because they remember. And you can do basic things like, you know, couple number 1 bow, couple 1 do-si-do, couple number 1 swing, go on around the square like that, just to get them going. Okay. Grand square, by the way, I usually teach it either 4th or 5th grade because all I do is I have the heads sit down, do the sides part, sides sit down, do the heads part, bring them all in, and they seem to do it. And that really works out well.
Yeah, Dan Prosser, Central Pennsylvania again, brings a couple of issues. With the homeschool children, you can teach straight square dancing, and you can throw a little bit of traditional in because there's some novelties, and they eat it up because they're there for an hour and a half class once a week. And I do kindergarten through senior high school. Sometimes I have a half an hour with the primary school children. Sometimes it's 45 minutes, sometimes it's an hour. I've developed a program where I can do singing calls, and I can teach them a basic within 5 minutes. Usually I start out with heel-toe polka if the children are 4th, 5th, and 6th. And actually that's not true. 1st and 2nd grade also, except they don't change partners. You don't worry about right hands or left hands. But from the standpoint of singing, I had input from teachers that said, we really would like you not to use all modern music. Now, this is just Central Pennsylvania. And so what I found is I use the hoedowns. I will use upbeat hoedowns, but I'll use some stuff that's traditional. But in the singing call, in what I call a singing call, I will use New Attitude, or I'll use that type of an upbeat piece of music. And I have found in the last 2 years that I do not sing the song. I let the music and let the children and the kids that are dancing interpret the music, and I don't date the music that way. I just did 2 programs, or 2 days, 2,000 children, 2 days, that were 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. And they loved Pink Cadillac, but they did not hear any of the words to Pink Cadillac. But when that music went down, they were on top of the world. So I've just found for me that works. I use Billy Does Your Bulldog Bite all the time, but never use any of the words, because that dates that song back to the late 80s or early 90s, but that music is modern today.
Just want to go through our handout here. You know, before you even get into a school, is it something right that you really want to do? Okay. New York State requires fingerprinting to work with children. All teachers, all aides, all substitutes have to be fingerprinted. Okay. Now, I also do some substitute teaching, so that's something that I'm already fingerprinted. But it's something that you might have to consider, that your state or local area, now they want people to be fingerprinted. Do you need a degree to go into a school and teach? Okay. I believe some states require some type of a degree. That's what I've heard. Okay. And here's something that I think all 3 of us can talk about. You have to have a low-key personality, not upset. You're going to get kids in there, like Eric said, who don't want to do it, who don't want to hold hands. Okay. You cannot be a perfectionist at this in 45 minutes. Okay. You can't teach a lot of styling. You can't teach a lot of timing. Okay. Little kids don't know anything about timing. All right. They don't know anything about styling. You want them to dance to the music as much as possible and have a good time. Okay. You guys want to say anything more about that as we're going along? Okay. You have to relate to children of all ages and backgrounds. All right. And you're going to get children of all ages and backgrounds no matter what school you go to nowadays. Sure. Go ahead.
The next one, you got to be in good physical shape, which I am.
Yeah. Okay.
I really am.
Salads.
We talk about long days. You think of it as Mike and myself, and we call full time, and our days at home are quite different than most. With Mike having a family and with my kids, especially in the summertime, we're constantly busy. You're on the go. You get to sit down and watch TV. You know, maybe do a puzzle and so forth. But when you're at the school and you get there at 7:30 in the morning and you leave at 2:45, and then you have to come home and prepare yourself to do a nighttime dance, it is just probably one of the most tiring things that anybody could go through. I'm a night person, by all means. I think most of us square dance callers are night persons. And when I say that, I'm home 2:30, 3 o'clock before I go to bed. When I'm teaching school and my dance is over at 10 o'clock, I beat it home and I'm in bed at 10:30. I'm just physically, mentally whooped. And yes, I'm a big guy. My knees are hurting, my ankles are hurting, my back's hurting, my brain's hurting, my face is hurting. It's killing you guys.
Hurts us.
Anyway, but it's hard on the body. It really is. It's not like it's not going. I'll just be quiet to my left and to my right. It's not like going out and doing a 2-hour dance at home and you can come home and have that pleasure of propping your feet up. When lunchtime comes, it's like that 20 minutes is a sigh of relief. It really is.
And it goes quick.
And it's like the bell rings and it's like, oh, here we go again. And but yes, no. But my point, it's important that you know what you're going to get when you get into the schools. It's important because when you first get into the schools and you start teaching in the schools, it's overwhelming. Yeah, I think I can do this. I know I can do this. And then when you come home, it's like, why did I put my body through? It's important that people hears this because of the fact being is that it's a different style of square dance calling, without a doubt. I mean, you got to be on the upbeat at any given time, all the time, all the time. You never know what's going to be thrown at you. I mean, you never know what's going to be thrown at you. So physically and mentally. And it's like when I do my last day of my 2 weeks, I think I'm so excited that even my blood's pumping differently because I know it's the last day. And then usually I got to get in the car and drive 4 hours to go do a dance at night somewhere and on the road for the weekend. But then I know I can relax until I have to go back in a week or 2 weeks later to do the testing that we do. Yeah. So
I did a high school a couple of weeks ago. We had 8 classes. 4 in the morning, half-hour lunch, 4 more, okay? And I had to dance every night that week somewhere. It was in the local area. I didn't have to travel far. But at the end of that week, like Tom says, you're whipped, man. You are whipped, okay? So you really have to be in physical shape, and you got to really let the equipment do the work as far as use of voice is concerned and that type of thing. Make sure you know how to use your voice. Eric, why don't you say something about music?
Music. Does music matter? When you present square dancing to youth, and I'm going to talk about teenagers in high school because most of my work is done in that area. Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion over the last several years about music and the kind of music we use in square dancing within CALLERLAB. It's important that you carefully consider the music that you're using when showing and teaching and calling square dancing for the youth. What you show and present them is going to be their picture and image and feeling, and it's going to play into everything that they experience about square dancing. I choose to use more modern music. Some don't, but I choose to use more modern music. This includes more modern hoedown music that we have on traditional labels, and also music that's not necessarily square dance music, but I remixed for square dancing. There are some good sessions here on alternative music, and I think you've seen these in the last few years. Take a good look at that. Go to the websites and look at what people are using for alternative music. A lot of this resonates really well with the kids. When they hear Venga Boys, when they hear Delight, when they hear some of these other groups that they're familiar with, their music coming on, when they hear disco songs from the 70s and they're dancing to it, they can't believe it because it changes everything. That said, I've also had students come up to me and say, "Can you put on some country music? Where's the traditional music?" So you can't have it only be one thing. But be aware that what you're putting out there, the kids are listening very carefully too. I don't use a lot of very old-fashioned traditional square dance music at all in any of my programs, but I do get a sense that once in a while that people want to hear that as well. But I do emphasize more current, more modern music. And some people like Scott, who I'm assuming will come back, takes this to a whole different level where he actually remixes a whole bunch of special music you use just for youth. So music selection is a very important consideration. It's not something that you take for granted or take maybe as casually as you would calling for regular square dancers, because we are familiar with what that library music sounds like.
Music is 90% of your success as far as I'm concerned in the schools, the type of music you use. I have some... And these are square dance labels, but they're more upbeat. I was playing them before some of you came in. You want to put that on? This is all hold-on music, by the way.
Tom Miller is putting a record on. Whoops Square It Is, and this will be on Lumac Records. Lumac LM-1602-593B.
You can call to this. Out of the partner corner two, circle on the left, go walking round a ring. Why don't you have a man left with a big left hand, and a right on left grand, hey, grand, right and left. Has a good beat to it. It's different, but the kids like that type of sound. Okay, it's sort of techno-type music, right? Here's another one.
That one was called Whoop Square It Is on Lumac 210. The next one will be a TNT. It's Kokomo 296. This one is Believe. It's on Ramblin' Rose Records 1001. There's another.
It's the old Cher record without. Music that has a good beat, and it's easy to call to.
Let me offer that if that one is in fact out of press or unavailable, I'm saying if it is, I think you're right, there is another version of it that's really quite good, and it's done as a singing call by Ken Bauer, and for the life of me I can't think of the name of the label, but if you'll go to docito.com and put in the title Believe, it'll give you a listing of all the records that are out there, that in Square Dance Records that have that title, and you can get the number on it. I apologize for not knowing it, but I use it as a patter record as well. Very similar. Nice, clean piece of music.
Okay, Eric's going to show some more examples of some music, huh?
I'm going to give you some examples of some music. I'm just going to run through them quickly. These are not Square Dance label music, but these are songs you can buy. Usually you can download them for 99 cents. It's so wonderful. We can buy our music legally for $1 a song coming down. And that's a very important thing. You find it out there where you can buy the songs at $1 a piece. Great. And try them. Use them. If they don't work, so what? You threw out $1, okay? This is Billy Idol.
Watch out, here I come.
Now, you have to listen for a second to understand what's going to work. This one kind of rolls into it for a while. Not as familiar to a lot of people, but this one is very familiar. Almost anybody who was alive in the 80s Love Shack by the B-52s. And you'll find this at every wedding reception, every party, because it's a great swing song. But you can call right on top of this, because this is the vocals enough in the background. You go on, and people recognize enough of this song to kind of bounce with it. Madonna did Vogue, which is a great song, again, on top of that. I can call right over Madonna. My voice is here, her voice is somewhere else. The dancers have no problem distinguishing it between we're here. Bananarama was a group in the 80s that did a song called Venus, the old 60s song, and everybody will recognize the song as they're dancing, but they put a big techno pop beat on it. So they're going along with us. Sing. And the last one is, this is the one where if you want to do something slower, and I use all these with my regular square dancers too. This is a group called Vitamin C. They did Me, Myself, and I. And after a while, you'd recognize it because it's got a cha-cha rhythm. It's really nice to dance to. It works great for square dancing. But it's the old Santana song from 1970 called, no, not Oh You Come About, but Me, Myself, and I can't trust nobody but Me, Myself, and I, whatever it is. So she goes, I recognize the song. Santana. And dancers will flow right along with this. This is a really good workshop one, because if you're workshopping something, anyway, I don't have to take a lot of time with this. So make sure you go to the alternative music sessions or talk to people using alternative music to find out some of their ideas. But mix it. Don't use it exclusively. Mix it in with everything you have. Variety is a very important thing.
Music is really important, as Mike and Eric has spoken there. One of the things that I found the kids like is there's a CD out there that's for sale at Walmart. It's called Crazy Frog. It has like Axel F, the techno Axel F with the Crazy Frogs, but it has some pretty good music, and the kids just love it. It's just and they have it's called Crazy Frog, and it has this crazy frog making all the noises in the background, and it's just kind of a neat thing that the kids enjoy it because of it's upbeat, it's techno music and so forth, but you have to have some, make sure you have the judgment when it comes to the music side of it. You got to be really careful because these kids are quick. I don't know if everybody's familiar with Moni Moni. Okay. If you think of Moni Moni and what happens at a regular dance, that happened at the high school. I was just myself. I wasn't thinking of what happened. It doesn't matter what happened. It was just pretty risque. It was just nasty, and the kids responded to it like that. So you got to be really careful of what music that you do choose to pass along to these kids. Myself, I'll have the kids. They'll come up and say, "Hey, do you have this and that?" I said, "No, if you have it, bring it in, and we'll dance to it, as long as it's worthwhile listening and there's nothing." Wrong with the lyrics and things like that. But I said I need to listen to it first before I just put it in. So I tell them, bring it in one class, and then we'll do it the next time you have a class. Scott.
I'm usually work eye to eye with Eric on music. We do a lot of very similar stuff, except most of the time what I do, because my voice is so high, people have trouble hearing my voice over a lot of groups. So I tend to get a lot of, I would take the popular piece of music like Eric would use, and what I do is I take the karaoke version. I can buy karaoke versions of the music, speed up the tempo, cut out sections of it, and I can use the whole thing. That's what I do. And a lot of times I'll ask the kids, I'll say, bring me what you want me to use. And if I can find a karaoke version for it, I'll use it.
Down Under, one word.
Oh, that's a good one. Actually, I just got a CD at Walmart. It had that on it.
Is this dead? Is this on? Okay. We're just switching right now. We're kind of sidetracking the music part here. We'll get back to the agenda here in a minute, but all right. So we got one more suggestion here by John Marshall. He's bringing up some music. Yeah, voices don't have to get in the way. Like Scott says, you know, if you can get a karaoke version, great. That's not always available. You can call over existing music that has voices on it. This is Put On Your Boogie Shoes by Casey, by Casey and the Sunshine Band. Yeah, off the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack. Think about when you're using this kind of music, work with the music, don't work in spite of it or against it.
I would offer that one of the first things that so many of us have been taught is you don't want anything that's going to conflict, right, with the caller's command voice. But we're finding, interestingly, there's any number of pieces of the music, the voices do not get in the way. One of the experiences that we've had is, for me anyway, is that if it's a much higher pitched voice, it seems not to get in the way at all, and if it's music that they appreciate, and besides, we're not doing complex choreography. We're not trying to ask them to do intricate things so that they can get maximum enjoyment out of the music. There's a piece that I've just learned to call to. Tom said occasionally they ask for country music, or he might want to play a piece of bluegrass music, current. This is, did you get it? This is off of Ricky Skaggs' latest album, Brand New Strings. Sally Joe. This is the underlying theme. Sally Joe. It's just as steady as a rock. Sally Joe, where did you go? Sally Joe. Since you had gone, my days have turned. It's bluegrass. That is just as steady, and I don't care if it's for schools or if it's for regular club dance. It's a lovely change of pace from time to time, and I keep the music fairly low, and I just let them move. They'll fall into that rhythm very steadily. But yeah, you're right. We don't want to turn into a music session completely, but I just wanted to share one or two pieces, and let's go back to this lovely outline that Mike's prepared for us.
Yeah, judgment of what you can use with different ages is very, very important. I don't even attempt a grand right and left probably till at least 3rd or 4th grade, okay? And I don't teach, when I teach a grand right and left, I don't teach an Alaman left to a grand right and left. I do face your partner, grand right and left. Works a lot better because when you have the little kids start going one direction, trying to go another direction, doesn't work, okay? If you go to a school every year, you can build on the program because kids remember from year to year what they have done. As Eric said, they want to do something new. I've had high schoolers, you know, do double pass-through, cloverleaf, flutter wheels, circulates in couples. I never get to a thar or an ocean wave. It just seems that I just don't have enough time, and that's something that it would take a while for them to pick up. One of the things the high school kids like that I found recently, I'll teach them box the nat, and then we'll do an element left, box the nat, wrong way grand, box the nat, right way grand, you're home. And they love that because it's a lot of constant motion, okay? They like a lot of constant type motion things they do, okay? Don't always just use ladies' chains all the time. They like to pass through. They like to California twirl. They like the names of some of the calls. California twirl, okay? They think that's a cool name. And some of the calls that we use, they think that some of the names are really cool, okay? Because yeah. But weave the ring. If you teach a grand right and left, you can teach a weave the ring in the next 5 seconds, okay? Very easy. Kids pick that up real easy. You want to stay pretty much away from a lot of rights and lefts up through 2nd grade. I might have kindergartners or 1st graders make a right-hand star, but I won't have them make a left-hand star until another grade perhaps, okay? just getting them to put the right hand and make a right hand star, you know. But you got to keep them moving. They like to move. They like to circle. They like to star. And they like to be challenged. Even the little kids do. And again, if you go to a school year after year, you can build on this. Okay?
I was going to jump ahead of the next part here, which is I want to jump ahead of the next section here, which talks about getting into the school, how do you get in the school system. And I want to ask if anybody's had any barriers or problems getting in to do a program at a school. Has anybody attempted this and tried to get in and had a problem doing it? Has anybody attempted to get into school? Yeah. Okay, so in past years, it's come up at this panel, people have had questions about how to get in, seeming there was some kind of barrier to getting into it, like they didn't know how to, like, they couldn't get approached, or they couldn't approach the principal or the teachers, or they couldn't get hired by the system, or there were too many red tape hurdles to go through. But nobody's experiencing that or having any problems with that? Okay.
Dan Prosser again. In Pennsylvania, and I'm not sure if it exists around the nation, there's what they call artists in residence programs, and the schools, music teachers in the elementary schools and that sort of thing are involved in that. And you need some credentials if you're going to go to a school, and so you want to make sure you have a program. But also, if you can use these people as reference, that gets you in the door. And a lot of phys ed teachers don't do square dancing because they don't want to. They don't have the material to work with, and they don't want to work quite that hard, because it is hard if you don't understand how to get started. And so you can say, let me work with your PE people, and there are a lot of good reasons to do it. The one phys ed teacher in New York County said, it's the best piece of education in physical education we provide for children. Pure education, not physical education. But he said the social value, and he's going to articulate that on a page of paper that I plan to provide to you guys, because it's a tool to get in the door and say, these are the social positives that you will receive if you do square dancing in your 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grades or whatever, from a social standpoint.
I flood the market. In August and September, before the internet, I would go through the phone book and I would mail out, I had a resume that I made up myself of the experience I've done in different schools in the area and that type of thing. 150, 200 schools I'd mail out every August and September. It would seem that every once in a while I'd get a new one. Okay? Maybe I never got one for 10 years. Then all of a sudden the administration changes. There's new teachers in there to say, hey, you know, this might be a program we might be interested in. Nowadays on the internet, most schools have an internet site. And a lot of times the teacher's internet address is on that site. So you attach a resume, mail it to the, push a button, there's 100 schools right out there. It goes right to the phys ed teacher. I don't try not to go through any type of administration. I go right to the phys ed teacher. I've had more luck contacting the ones that teach the class rather than an administrator. I think the administrators just throw the stuff out. But the teachers that like the program have some way, they'll find a way to bring you in if they really like what you're doing.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
Be prepared when you go to a school. Make sure that you're prepared, because they're going to be asking questions, whether it's with the phys ed teacher or the higher ranks in the school. They're going to be asking you questions and so forth. Be prepared. I was fortunate with how I got into the schools. The other schools that I got into was by the help of the other phys ed teacher, or the phys ed teacher at the high school that I initially started, with him writing a letter of recommendation and getting into the other high schools. And when I went to those other schools, the first thing they asked, well, we need clearances. Do that ahead of time. Get your clearances that you need, and have it on hand. Clearances would be like, and I know in Pennsylvania, Dan, there's a name for all the clearances. The clearances is like through the state police that you have no criminal record, and the number one is the number two. The other one is through like child services to make sure that you're not on the record of being a child abuser or something of that effect. It's important to have those, and I think they're $10. I know in Pennsylvania they're like $10 for each, or $15 for one, and they're good for 3 years. and so every 3 years you need to get them. I have this. The schools never asked me for them, but I have them. So the high school that I'm going to next year has already told me I have to have my clearances, and I told them it's not a problem. It's already been taken care of. So make sure that you put everything in order, and because the more you put in order and the more material that you have, the more professional it looks, and that you are prepared to go into the high schools and do the program.
I've been fortunate to work for an arts organization called Young Audiences Incorporated. This is an arts organization in our area that brings artists into schools, whether it be dance teachers, clowns, storytellers, whatever. They send a catalog out each year to every school, and they list all the artists in their program. And what they do is they're like a booking agency. And you give them your fee, they add their fee on top of it, okay? And just last week, I found out that there's these chapters of this Young Audiences in like 20 states and cities on the internet. And I have phone numbers, I got email addresses of people to contact. And what they did when I first approached them, they said, okay, let us know when you're going to be in a school. We'll send somebody out to evaluate your program. And they sent out somebody, they liked what I did, they said, okay, you can be one of our artists now. And I've been doing this for 10 years through them, and they give me a lot of business, okay? A lot of schools use them for their assemblies, for artist and residency type programs and that. But you're welcome to look at this. I wasn't sure how many people we would have, only made 5 copies, but if you want to look at this, see if your state or your city's on it, take down any email addresses or phone numbers or anything you want. Well, there's a website on. There's a national office in New York, and I got states: California, Colorado, Connecticut, Georgia, Indiana, Louisiana, Maryland, Michigan, Minnesota, Missouri, Montana. There's 8 pages of them anyhow. Okay. And it gives, the contacts and everything. So I'll pass them out, and you guys can look at them.
I'm going to dovetail that right into compensation. Having done this for the first several years on a volunteer basis, and the last time I actually got paid, which was very happy about that. Solid, yeah. The group that hired me, the Catholic school that hired me, offered me a certain rate, and I said, well, normally my rate is this, and they didn't quite pay me that, but they had no problem adjusting it to what something closer to that amount, which was very nice. How do you find, what kind of fees do you find that they're paying out there for this? Mike, Tom, anybody?
Mike could probably answer that better. I'll tell you what, I get pretty much like a I'm on. I get a student teacher pay for the day. That's what I get for the day. If I go back in to do something for the school, then in square dancing, then I get an hourly pay that the school has to offer. But when it comes to the square dancing, I get a student teacher pay, or not a student teacher, but a sub pay is what. Thank you. That's what the substitute pay is. What I get, not a student teacher pay, a substitute pay. Thank you for clarifying that for me.
I used to charge a daily rate, and then one year you're doing 5 classes, the next year you're doing 7 classes, the next year you're doing 8 classes. So this year I charged $235 a day for 6 classes, $50 a class over that. And each year I try to bump the daily fee up maybe $5 or $10. Okay. So it depends really on who pays for this. Okay. It might come from the school budget. It might come from the student council. A lot of times the parent-teachers associations will take care of this, okay, or this Young Audiences program. Again, the visiting artists, the artists in residency, all that. And there's a lot of school districts that have cultural art funds, especially to bring artists into the schools to do this, okay. What I get is probably, in some circles, it might be adequate. Some people might think it's a lot. Some people might think it's not enough. But you'd be surprised at what some of these artists get for coming into schools, especially some of the professional musicians that come in to work with the band and that type of thing, get a lot more than that. Okay, but what I try to do each year is bump the fee up maybe $5 or $10 a day. Okay.
Anybody else have any other comments or any insight into that?
Dan Prosser again. I'd say $75 is probably the lowest. $125 a day to $200 a day is pretty average, particularly for the artisans and residents. Those monies don't seem to be hard to find.
Does anybody have any more questions, first of all, before we take our last group here? Okay. When you go into a school, depending on the group you work with, all right, I kind of try to divide my choreography I use into K through 2, 3 to 5, 6 to 8, and high school. And that seems to be a skill level for each group that you can pretty much do like basic calls with. 3 to 5, you can do certain calls with. 6 to 8, they're starting to really go now. In high school, you know, you can go full tilt sometimes, okay? But for me, that's a good division of the skills that the kids have as far as knowing right from left and that type of thing, okay? I do kids dances, you know, especially for the small kids, chicken dance, hokey pokey, that type of thing. A lot of times if you bring the real small children in and do the hokey pokey, they're already in a circle. You can have them sit down, have the teacher get a square on the floor, demonstrate a few things, and then get them into squares, and that works pretty good. Okay. A lot of the high schools or middle schools like line dances, cha-cha slide, electric slide, Macarena. I have quite a few that I've picked up through the internet that are easy, but if you're going to teach a line dance, make it a real easy one to teach because you don't have much time. Evening dances with parents. This is something that has evolved over the years. A lot of schools like to show the parents what the kids have done. Okay, so they'll have a family night after I come in. I'll stay that evening and do a family night with the parents. The kids will bring their parents back in. And again, we do the line dances. You know, we do a lot of the things that the kids have done. We might even get the kids up in a square and demonstrate to the parents, you know. And you got to schmooze a little bit. You got to say, oh, this is a great school to work for. You guys are so lucky your kids are going here and all this kind of stuff. And you get asked back the next year.
It's all part of the PR work, you know. The thing about working with kids in school, and I'm sure that Dan and Mike and Eric will agree with me, you have to go in there with an attitude that you're going to have a good time. If the kids see that you're having a good time and you're going to take the time to walk away from your equipment to visit with them and talk with them and so forth, then your job has basically become a cakewalk. It's everything else will just fall into place. And we think of that, well, you're going to give them a 2-minute break. Take that 2 minutes and go out and visit with the kids, talk with the kids. And I got into the habit that I don't talk to the kids about square dancing. I ask them how they're doing the baseball game last night, or how they're doing the football game, or you play sports, tell me what you do. I try to build that one-on-one relationship type thing that we're talking other than square dancing. And I've already walked away from kids, and I heard them say that Mr. Miller's pretty cool, you know, and I just keep walking away. It's that one-on-one relationship, and I just don't hang out with the guys. I go and visit with the girls. If there's a girl, like maybe she's on the sick list or something like that, or maybe she's in the cast or whatever it might be, I walk over and say, hey, what happened? Was it if it's in December, you thinking maybe it's a skiing trip, or did you fall skiing? And No, I wish it was skiing. It was being stupidity and falling down on the ice and so forth. So there's this constant work, this PR work that you do, and then you have to get to know just not the phys ed teachers, but get to know all the other teachers that's walking through the hall. Take that time between classes, especially if it's your first time there. If the teachers, if you walk up to the teachers, eventually you're going to see them come through the phys ed in through the gym and visit with you. Maybe they have a prep time or something like that. They're going to come and visit with you. Take the opportunity, if you have the chance to eat the lunch, take the lunch period and eat them there. If the teachers, if you walk up to the teachers, eventually you're going to see them come through the phys ed in through the gym and visit with you. Maybe they have a prep time or something like that. They're going to come and visit with you. Take the opportunity, if you have the chance to eat the lunch, take the lunch period and eat with the teachers and visit with them. Just, you have to fit in. You just got to fit in and look like one of them, and they'll respect you for what you're doing for their kids. Ken?
How about square dance attire? Do you avoid that?
I wear what I have on right now. I wear jeans, pullover shirt, not necessarily this particular one, tennis shoes, and that's what I wear. I don't wear boots. I don't wear long sleeve shirts. I don't wear bolos. Now, on the other hand, Dan Prosser watches TV in a Western shirt and a bolo. So,
I dress also in business casual clothes because that's mostly what I'm wearing all the time anyway. I only dress in Western clothes on special occasions, so mostly in business casual with the kids, and so this clothing is never an issue.
I do a little bit of both. I used to wear Western clothes for a long time. I dress casual. I'm sort of going back a little bit. Not to long sleeve shirts, but maybe a short sleeve shirt and a bolo. I don't wear boots or a big belt buckle or anything like that. But one school I went to was kind of funny. A little girl came up to me every day to see what bolo I had on. I said, "Oh, that's a nice one," she says, "you're wearing today," and that. So I don't know. For some reason, in the past few years, I'm sort of going back, not to dress a full Western dress, but just some little inkling of that.
Yeah, Dan Prosser again. I think if you're doing a week or 2 weeks or something like that, that's one issue. If you're hired to do a day, that's just personal. If you're doing a day, I go in costume. And last year, I had a bunch of boys come up to me and say, "How comes you dress like that?" And I said, "Well, how comes you guys dress like that?" You know, and they said, "Well, what do you mean?" And I said, "Well, this is kind of a uniform that, that square dancers do, and I'm here in a costume because I'm an entertainer, that sort of thing." But I said, "You guys are wearing costumes," and they looked at me and said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, you all have sweatshirts on that are the primary same. You're all wearing blue jeans. You all have the same similar types of sneakers on. So I said, you wouldn't come in here in a suit and tie, would you? And go to school." And they just looked at me like, "Wow, you got us."
As we're approaching the end of our time, I wanted to make sure if there were any more questions or comments anybody would like to share.
Anyone have any experiences, Christy, that they'd like to share about calling in schools?
No,
yes, you have to.
But it won't be long. Just do it quick. Won't hurt.
Christy Jacobs from Alexandria, Virginia, and I work at a daycare. So last year after CALLERLAB, and I actually went to the Calling in Schools panel last year and listened and said, well, maybe that's something that I could do. So I went back to my daycare and talked to the director, and I teach in the preschool program, but we also have an after-school program, and during the summer they have a summer camp. So talked to my director about maybe teaching the summer camp kids, and they're all elementary school age, a little bit of square dancing. So we did a little bit, and it was kind of hard to fit it into the program. We didn't really know. We just kind of fit it in where we could. But we got a little bit done, and they really enjoyed it, and I think it went pretty well. Elementary school, all the way up. And I split them up, so I think I had 1st to 3rd grade, and then 4th to 6th.
Actually, I have another question. When I went into the schools, especially with a large group, there was one school I was taking over for Jack Murtha that had about 3,000 kids, and I had to break them up into 3 different sections. I had like 45 minutes with each group of 1,000 kids to teach them. I asked them to bring me a teacher for every every certain amount of students that they had. So do you guys have teacher assistants there? What's your ratio of teachers to the students?
It just all the schools I do are just the regular PE classes, so the teachers are in there. The high school I did the other week, there was 2 periods of the day where there was 180 kids in each class, and there were 6 phys ed teachers. Each phys ed teacher had 30 kids, but the phys ed teachers were in there at all times with their classes. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, they handle it. You don't get a hold. You don't touch discipline. You're there as a consultant. And if you see something that you don't like, you tell the teacher, hey, and let them handle it.
Okay, a couple things I'd like to comment on. You notice on the bottom it refers to the Calling in Schools handbook that's available at the CALLERLAB office. A lot of work and research went into that. There's some helpful things in there. The panelists that we have, I've heard all of them call. I know what good callers they are. Several of you in the room I've also heard call, and have always been impressed with your talents and your skills. There's something that you bring to the table, I believe, that goes well beyond being able to have an alternative income, an opportunity for you to share your talents. I believe if the callers who go in and do this in the schools are good at what they do, not just somebody who's trying to learn how to call so they couldn't get a square in the basement so somebody got them a school gig. That's not what I want to see. I want to see this kind of talent doing that, because you're providing a legacy to square dancing that will last because of the positive experiences that they're receiving. It is very, very special, and I would love to find a better way to acknowledge the talents that are doing that, because it will make a difference. 20 years from now, 30 years from now, when Tommy's 20 again, it will be a factor in square dancing's future. I really believe that. But it's got to be people that are doing a good job with it. And we need to kind of, I think, try to find a way to be careful and make sure that it's the right people that are going into schools to do this, like the folks here. I mean, it's great. I want to thank Mike Callahan. I want to thank Eric Henerlau, Tom Miller, and Dan Prosser as our special mystery caller guest. And thank all of you for spending your time with us. Have a great convention, good banquet tonight, and we'll look